Okay, guys, it is 2 days later and it's time to get these potatoes in the ground. I only had to wait 24 hours or anywhere between maybe 12 to 24 hours after cutting the potatoes to let them scab a little bit before planting them. But it's about 2 days later, and I'm going to turn the camera around and let you take a look at them so you can see what I am referring to when I talk about the potato scabbing over. So let me turn the camera around and let you take a look. So you can see here are the potatoes. They're where we left them. And I'll put one a little bit closer. As you can see, it no longer has that wet texture or that shiny texture to it. And that is what we call allowing your potatoes to scab or heal the cut. So they're not so fresh. They're a little bit more protected when they go into the ground. So we have some that are a little bit more than we would like, but it still has a good viable flesh. Here, I'm not going to cut that off because then I would have to wait for that to scab over. So it will be fine. But we still have the eyes, and I will plant these face down like this in the soil. So if it does get a little dark like that, it's okay. I still plant it. And it does just seems to do just fine. We have a couple here that are a little bit darker, but just depending on the potato, how they actually look at the end. This is a white flesh, so it doesn't look as bad. But some of the darker flesh, they do look like they're a little rough, but it's okay. This is what we're looking for here. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is add all of these into my basket, and we're going to get these outside so that we can get these planted. Okay, guys, we are outside about to plant our potatoes. Before I do that, I've had a few questions related to soil. And one of the things that's most important to think about or to know about gardening is a lot of people want healthy plants, so they focus on their plants. In reality, you should focus on your soil. So healthy soil, healthy plants. Then you'll have a better yield and then a better harvest. So before I plant the potatoes, which is our first planting really of our spring season, I want to talk a little bit about soil. And again, please do your additional research, look and see what's best in your zone. Take a look and see what's best on how you garden. For me, I raise in garden beds. I do have some in-ground. I do grow in bags. And it may be a little different from container to container. You don't have to do as much when you're growing in ground because it can pull the nutrients from the soil, but it does help to add some nutrients and some and fertilize because it will, as you continue to grow in those same areas, it depletes the soil. So again, depending on how you grow, where you grow, you want to do additional research. This is how I do it. And I tend to have success. And then I also have failures. So for you, I really want you to take this as just a beginning to maybe looking into some of this terminology or looking into what's best in growing in bags or what's best in growing in vertical gardening containers. So this is again how I do it. I've had people ask, how do I amend my soil? What do I use? And so I'm just going to share some of the things that I do. Because I grow in containers and I don't replace the soil, like sometimes in bags, you're able to dump them out, re-amend the bags. I grow in a lot of containers and I'm not able to remove the soil. So one of the things that's important to me is that I want to be able to have soil that doesn't get compact and hard like clay. So in order for that to be successful, I use a gardening, a soil mix that has a little bit of sand. I'm not quite sure how well you can see that, but you may be able to see there's little granules of sand in that soil. And so what that allows is for there to be some movement in the soil. Sand doesn't erode or wash away. It allows the soil to have like this mixture, like this movement, and not become compact after year after year after year of growing and watering. And then I like to mix it with kind of a pro mix. It's very windy out here, so I'm trying to prevent this from blowing away. But I use a Pro Mix that's a lot like cocoa coir. It's a mixture of cocoa coir or like peat moss, and it usually contains a lot of perlite. And as you can see, it's very light because you can see just from the wind, it's literally kind of blowing out of my hand. And so a mixture of that keeps my soil really nice, loose, and allows great drainage. Okay, so that's just a base of my mixture. Is I like to literally have a mixture of kind of a sandy soil, and then I will add a little bit of peat moss or cocoa coir mixture, usually kind of a pro mix. I'll put a picture of the bags that I typically use. Soil could be a mixture. It's like whatever's on sale. I try to stay away from some of the bad brands that they indicate have a lot of synthetic products in it. But one that I've recently come across is the Texas Pride. Again, I'll show the picture of the bag. So I've been using that this last, I think, for the winter and now spring gardening season. And this Pro Mix I've been using as well. As most gardeners, you hear a lot about black cow. So I will mix this black cow. It is a compost. It is a cow manure that has an NPK of 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. And so usually every growing season, I will top off the bags with some black cow. I do compost myself, so I will also use that. That way I don't have to buy so much black cow. I'll kind of mix it and I will top off the beds. Speaking of NPK, NPK represents 3 essential micronutrients that you can find in fertilizers. So for example, I have one here that I purchased from MI Gardener. And if you notice, the NPK is usually listed somewhere on the containers. So N, P, and K. So let's talk about what NPK stands for. Okay, so I do have my notes. I will be looking down at my notes. So NPK stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So when you're choosing a fertilizer, you're looking at the NPK based on what you're planting. And maybe that plant may need more of one than the other. If you notice on the one I just shared with you, it was a 5-10-4. It had a lot more phosphorus than it did nitrogen and potassium. So if you're looking for something more of a balanced fertilizer across the board, you want to look for something like a 4-4-4, 6-6-6, or 10-10-10. That is a balanced fertilizer. But again, depending on what you're growing, if it needs one more than the other, then you're looking for that ratio that particular item you're planting. So nitrogen, which is the first N, it drives leafy rapid growth. So it's more for that leafy vegetable. You want your leaves to grow like collard greens or mustard greens or tomatoes or things that you need that are very green. If you start seeing leaves turning a little yellow, we usually will fertilize with nitrogen. Most commonly the fish fertilizer, also known as 511. That is something that is commonly used throughout the season to fertilize because it does promote healthy green growth. The phosphorus supports roots and bloom development. So you want healthy roots and you want high production of blooms. From blooms starts your vegetable. So for example, on a tomato plant, when it blooms, that bloom could possibly turn into a tomato. Squash, zucchinis, it starts off with a bloom. So you want high production of blooms. That's where you get your pollination. So you want high production of blooms. And then last but not least is potassium, which increases the overall hardiness and disease resistance for your plants. So it just makes a healthy plant. So you definitely want to focus on your potassium to just have a better plant, last longer, produces more, healthy plant. Okay, so that's kind of a simple breakdown of the NPK, and I try to keep it simple for myself. Like if I see a plant that's yellowing, I know I need a little nitrogen. And if I'm not having high production in my blooms, I'm looking for phosphorus. I want to increase the phosphorus. And potassium also, I just want a healthy plant all the way around. So Again, that's some really important key steps to think about when you're looking at your NPK. I'll share with you a couple other examples. This is a brand that I purchased from Walmart, and it also shows you the NPK 315 and 0. So this one is very high in promoting blooms and root development. So you always will hear a lot of people talk about bone meal. And then another one that I also purchased from Walmart, but it's a burpee brand, and it's is a 1200. If you can see right here, and that is meaning it is straight nitrogen. So that's going to promote a very green, leafy plant. So you'll hear a lot of people adding blood meal as an amendment to their soil. So I'm using all three today. I'm only using a little bit of the bone meal because it is high in nitrogen, and the trifecta is as well. So I just put a little bit. So, and I'll show you the container. So for the trifecta, I probably put a half a cup. The bone meal, I probably put maybe 2 to 3 teaspoons. And then the blood meal, which is high in nitrogen, I added maybe a half a cup. Now, with that being said, read the label, read the back. Don't do as I do what you should do, and that is read the label. It will tell you how much you should use. It's always best to use less than too much. You can't take it out, and you don't want to over fertilize your plants, and you can always add more if you need to. So again, read the back of the label. It is your best option. Just to add a few little tips and additional tips, there are granular fertilizers. Like this is the trifecta. You can see there's granules in there. Those break down over time. They don't just once you put them in the soil, just break down immediately. So it will feed the plant for months. And so that's why I use a little bit more of the granulars. Some of the more finer, powdery, like the bone meal and the blood meal, I'll go a little bit, just a little bit heavier because that will break down quickly into the soil. And so the plant can get it immediately. Now, once the plant starts to grow, you can use more like a liquid fertilizer, again, like the fish fertilizer, also known as the 511. That you mix with water, and you can water your beds with it. And that is kind of, the plant will just suck that right up. So that is to maintain healthy plants. But what you're putting in the soil today, the granulars and the powder, will slowly break down. So again, you may ask, well, why do I need all of those if they're all kind of the same? They release at different times. Okay. So that is, I think, all I have on my notes. So one more thing I'm going to add. Again, it's very windy out here, and I'm kind of nervous about opening this up. What I do is I will save my eggshells, and I will let them dry for a few hours, and I'll keep them in a Ziploc bag. I don't seal it because that probably will smell really bad, just so that it continues to dry out. And then I will ground it into a powder. You can put eggshells in your compost or directly into your beds, but it takes a really long time for eggshells to break down. And so if you powder them and add them to the soil, then it won't take as long to break down, and it won't be so many large pieces in your soil. Egg shells add calcium, which also promotes a healthy soil. So I do add eggshells to the bed whenever I'm amending the bed. It's a great way. It's a free way. I already use the eggs, and it's a great fertilizer to add back into the eggs. I use the compost in, but I noticed that eggshells would be still trying to break down or look the exact same way as when I put it in there when I was ready to use the soil. So I now powder it and keep it in this container. Okay, so let's get to planting the potatoes. But if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments. I'll do my best to provide some information back. Okay, guys, so in this first bed, I have already kind of added the amendments. And as you can see in this bed, I've just kind of added everything into the bed, and then I will mix it up so that it looks like this. And then I don't try to go too deep into the soil. I just try to mix maybe the top few inches. I forgot to add my egg powder. Now, egg powder I will Add quite a bit. Again, it takes a long time for this to break down, but I'll just mix it into the top layers of the soil. As it gets watered and it rains, it will break down into the soil. Okay. Now, with potatoes, I'm pretty sure a few of you are saying, why is that soil so low? Well, let me explain. Unlike sweet potatoes, potatoes pretty much stay within the general area of the plant. So wherever you plant the potato and you pull that plant up, you'll have majority of those potatoes around that plant. So we do this thing that's called healing. And that is adding soil to continue to build as the plant grows, and you're adding soil, it can continue to create roots, which then will create potatoes. So you start off with a low level of soil when you first plant, and then in about 3 weeks, I will add more soil and continue to build probably a good 5 inches taller to see if we can get more production out of our potatoes. Now, if you choose not to heal and you just want to go ahead and get more soil and then plant, by all means, you can do so. You do not have to heal. You guys know me. I am a heavy planter. So I will plant potatoes not pretty close together, but I will plant close together. Try to off-center it a little bit so that it does give a little bit of room. I like to see how many potatoes I have and how many I can get in here. I do have another place where I'm going to plant potatoes, so if I have any left over, I will plant in that bed. I have 4 more, and I can probably get 2 more in here. Nope. Get 3 more because I have a hole right there. How deep am I planting them? I want at least 2 to 3 inches above the plant because, as I mentioned, I'm going to heal it. You want your eyes to be facing upward. This one didn't have a lot of eyes, but we had some small indications of eyes. So we're going to just turn that sideways. I'm going to plant this one a little bit deeper. I literally have 1 more. So I think I'm going to go ahead and move this one up just a tad bit. Again, I know that I plant very heavy, but I have always done that. And it has seemed to work out. Sometimes it doesn't. Trying to make sure all the soil is from around the edges. I don't need the buildup of soil. I need it in covering the potato. Okay. Now, this is the Viking potato. I usually have these sticks where I tie this on. What I'm going to do is I'll probably put some tape over this to protect it. Because I do like to, I will tie this, and this is just paper. It's not going to last. And this is how I label it. So I'll know what it is. Okay, so now we have planted our first potato bed. We're going to move over to this bed where we're going to plant the purple potatoes. And every now and then you're going to find a potato from last year's, especially if you're replanting in the same beds. But I'm going to put this back in there because it will grow, hopefully, and produce more potatoes. If you notice here, you're probably going to see a lot of worms in this center section. I just saw one. Remember when we put the greens here from the garden cleanup? No signs of them. It's all gone. It's been put to good use. The worms in this bed have devoured them and have left me some great worm castings. A little heavy on the eggshells on this because this is maybe my third year planting potatoes in these beds. I should rotate, but it works for me with them growing here. I am going to plant potatoes in a different bed for the first time this year, but I have turnips in that bed right now, and so we'll probably do a second round, a second succession in that bed. Now, we don't have very many of the purple potatoes, so they're going to get plenty of room. They don't look the best, so I'm really hoping that they bounce back and produce a lot. Okay, that one was pretty easy. These beds are on irrigation. And we have potatoes planted in this bed. Okay, so the last bed we're going to plant. I've also added the amendments. The soil is nice and wet because it rained 2 days ago, and it's been pretty cool. So we added some of those leaves in these beds as well. So we're going to plant the Irish cobbler in this bed. And I have quite a few, so I might get some of the Irish cobbler in a different bed as well. Let's see. Okay. Third bed of potatoes down. And I still have 7 of the Irish gobbler. And so I'll get those in the other bed as soon as the turnips come out, which will probably be this weekend. While we were over here, I thought I'd just share with you the lettuce and how it's doing in this bed. It's coming right along, and before you know it, we'll have lots of lettuce to go along with all those weeds. I don't know why. Sometimes I just notice the weeds way more than I do the plants. I don't understand how weeds find their way, but they do. And just the peak for the beets, we do have beets that did germinate over on this other bed. So that's just an update on the lettuce and the beets. But coming soon, we're going to have lots to talk about here in the garden. So we're going to be clearing out a lot of things, harvesting some of the last of the fall winter crops, and getting ready to amend all the beds. Some of them are amended. I ended up planting in them, so we'll see how that goes. I still haven't mapped out where everything is going to be planted. A lot of times I used to do that ahead of time, but now I like to do it after I see what survived and what I've purchased along the way in plants and starts, so I'll know how much I have and where everything is going to fit. So that's the end of the video. I want to thank you for sticking with me for the last few days and getting the potatoes, or most of the potatoes, planted. Next, we'll be trying to start hardening off our plants and maybe taking a tour at a couple nurseries to pick up some things. It seems like I grow a lot, but I also give away a lot. So that way I have a little room of purchasing some things. You just can't not buy some plants. I mean, it may be something you forgot to start, or you just want to support your local nursery for whatever reason. It's valid. That's what I tell my husband. You just have to buy some. You can't start all of them. Okay, so that's my garden math. So with that being said, thanks guys for coming back to K's in the Garden. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Also here I have a cauliflower that needs to be harvested soon, like today. I have a few more cabbages, but I think those will be fine. Take a look at our experiment cabbage. It's actually starting to form little baby cabbages. I'm so impressed with that I just want to do that every year. I need to harvest that cabbage. And I need to pull those weeds. As I'm going to keep you updated on the weeds just as much as I am on the vegetables. We've got to come out of here and get some of this kale. And I have yet to harvest my carrots. I still have lots of broccoli that I need to harvest. I have a couple kohlrabis, and I probably should harvest some of the collard greens in the back. Over in that bed, I have a ton of turnips that I need to harvest. And I need to cut back my rose bushes today, because if not, it's starting to get warm and they're going to start producing new growth, and that's not going to be good for me to trim them at that point.